I talked about them Meatloaf burgers. This is a true story as well. And it doesn't have anything to do with the comedian that talked about those burgers, because once again, this happened before that comedy special came out. But we come from the same background, so to speak. So whoever taught his aunt and his mom how to cook probably came from the same places where my mom and my aunts learned how to cook, and so on and so forth. So probably make a lot of the same things. All right. Basically, a meatloaf burger is just, you take the ground beef, and I don't think they go through all that mixing this percent beef and this percent pork. Like, no, it's just ground beef. All right. It come in a tube, it say ground beef, and they tell you what percentage it is, whatever the cheapest ground beef is at the store probably is what they bought back then. Cause we're talking about the 70s. So it's not like we were buying like grade A and like, I don't think nobody had money like that. Well, nobody who I'm talking about had that kind of money, I don't think. But when you make a meatloaf, you would chop up vegetables, like you would chop up onions and peppers and things like that, right? So you chop that up, put it into like a loaf pan or whatever, and you cook it. So them meatloaf burgers is just the same people who were making the meatloaf with all that chopped up peppers and onions and stuff. They would make their hamburgers the same way. Sometimes they take the ground beef, they would put an egg in it, and then they put all the chopped up vegetables in it, and then they would make the patties, and they would usually be a lot bigger than the burgers that you would buy out at fast food spots or whatever. But they were meatloaf burgers, and they were good. If you like meatloaf, you're going to like the meatloaf burgers. With that being said, that's where that came from. If your family made them, then you know what I'm talking about. Usually families would have one or two older family members who like to cook and know how to cook. Sometimes you have some that like to cook and cooking just isn't good, but the person making the meatloaf burgers is the same person that was making the meatloaf, and it was always good. So that's where them meatloaf burgers came from. It's just, instead of you chopping everything up and putting it in a loaf, you chop everything up and you make patties out of it. But they really were good. Them meatloaf burgers. Couch Potato Bud.